So after high school, I went and served a mission up in Canada. And when I got back, I went into college just because that's what everybody does. I applied to a bunch of places. Nobody wanted to hire me. And I'm like, man, forget this. Like, not even McDonald's is going to hire me. I had a guy approach me and say, look, we've got this opportunity where you can come and knock doors to make money. And so in that 3.5 month period, I made just over $96,000 from there. So I was making a lot, but I wasn't spending a lot. Biggest thing that matters the very most is you've always got to find a way to bring value. What's going on, guys? Just meeting some incredible people out here in Vegas.
What is up, YouTube? Matt McKeever here, and I'm really excited for today's video because I'm going to be sharing with you the story behind one of my good friends, Chandler David Smith. If you guys haven't seen Chandler before on the channel, well, he was way back in 2018 when we had the Vegas entrepreneur experience.
So every time I break eye contact, I'm going to make eye contact, I'm going to give this little grin, and I'm going to get a little head nod out of him, okay?
If you guys don't remember the Vegas entrepreneur experience, it was literally where myself and Jeff Weibel rented out a boutique hotel for 2 days. We bought out the entire hotel, so it was just our private playground for entrepreneurs. Chandler was one of the attendees and in fact gave an impromptu talk on door knocking and just first impressions. But before we get into today's video with Chandler, just a little bit of background on Chandler. He currently has 99 rental units. He's also crushing it with his sales business. So he's actually doing $10 million plus a year in sales with his primary business. He's got over 300 sales reps that are doing door-to-door sales. Chandler is just a phenom when it comes to building rapport and communicating in an expressive and effective manner. I'm really excited for today's video, guys, so let's dive into it with Chandler Smith. What is up, YouTube? Matt McKeever here, and I'm really excited to dive into today's video with Chandler David Smith. And specifically, if you guys aren't familiar with Chandler, he's actually been on my YouTube channel a really long time ago where he was showing us the skill set he's developed in regards to door knocking. And we were kind of viewing it through the lens of being a wholesaler. But anyways, in today's video, what we're going to focus on is just everything to do with Chandler's background. So he's got 99 units currently with real estate. He's built a business that does $10 million in sales volume. From last year was 172 reps. This year, he's got over 300 reps in that business. He's also a YouTuber as well. So make sure you guys jump over and check out his YouTube channel. He's been getting a lot of traction, just hit 25,000 subs. I remember that was a big milestone for myself. I feel like 25, 50, and then I hope the 100. Those are the big milestones that really like, where you're like, oh, like you can realize what all the work you've done led up to that point. So anyways, just really excited to dive into today's video where we're going to chat with Chandler about his backstory and how he got here and just his entrepreneur journey in general. And I guess one last thing I forgot, Chandler's also married, 2 kids. So he's actually got like the work-life balance thing dialed in while also being a serial entrepreneur. So how's it going, Chandler?
Going great, Matt. Thanks so much for having me on. It's one of those things I've been looking forward to because I do feel like the Vegas event and a lot of the advice I've gotten from you with YouTube and real estate and everything else has been just another thing to kind of add and bring value and build up to where I'm at. So it's exciting to be here.
Yeah, I love it. And that Vegas event Chandler's talking about, to me, is just such a great example of your network being your net worth. So I can literally remember being on the phone with you. I remember exactly where I was talking to you. And at this point in time, Chandler had just agreed to get on a phone with essentially an internet stranger to see whether he should fly to Vegas and hang out with us for a weekend. And what myself and Jeff Weibel did back in 2018 was we bought out like a boutique Vegas hotel for a weekend and turned it into like a private playground for entrepreneurs. I can remember us just chatting, and I forget exactly, like we were talking about YouTube. I think you had just started the channel and things of that nature, and you'd already built up an impressive real estate portfolio then. But I guess being able to have that in-person relationship, even though we may not see each other that often, because of social media, I feel like I'm still always mildly aware of what's going on in Chandler's world. And again, it's just so powerful coming out to these in-person events where you get to build like real relationships. I know that's maybe a bit of a tease right now because we're going under COVID-19 and quarantine. And so we're literally not allowed to be out in-person networking. But yeah, that was That was a really cool experience. And it was just focused on entrepreneurship, which segues well. So one thing I've started to notice as I'm doing a lot of these interviews with real estate investors and business owners is that there's often a pattern of being an entrepreneur. And so they've often dabbled with other businesses or side hustles. So before we get into all the success you have today, I'd love to just kind of take a step back and walk me through, like, were there other businesses in grade school or high school? Were you constantly a sponge of knowledge? How has this all evolved for you?
Yeah, no, it's interesting because I think knocking doors and interacting with people has been one of the big things that's brought me a lot of success in life. And I know cold calling or, going and knocking a stranger's door is something that a lot of people stay away from. For me, that's my jam. That's where I'm the most comfortable. That's where I know I can just really control the conversation and the environment. And so from a young age, I decided I didn't want to get a normal job. I had had a job working for a law firm that absolutely sucked. And just to tell you how bad it sucked, I remember saying I will never work an hourly job again. And it ended up being about 10 years later, I went back and I bought that law office building just to be like, suck it.
That's awesome, man.
So I now rent to them, which is awesome. But after having that job, I just realized I really didn't want to do anything hourly because I thought I was worth more than $8 an hour. So I started mowing lawns, and I did that by just going and cold calling people and saying, hey, I'll mow your lawn. And they'd say, no, it's cool. We've got someone. And I said, okay, I'll just mow it for free. You pay me what you think it's worth. I'd kick trash on the mow, and they'd usually end up paying me and then saying, all right, you can mow it for us from now on. So that's how I originally started making money. I saved up enough money to buy a car and then to go on a mission for my church. So I spent 2 years out doing service for people, sharing a message about Jesus Christ. And in that time, we also knocked a lot of doors. So
Yeah.
after that mission, I came back, and it was funny because I always thought I was going to go to college and just kind of go down that track. I wanted to be a lawyer. That was kind of my end goal. But after going to college, I somehow fell into this trap of, hey, I should go get an hourly job. So the second I started that first semester, I applied to a bunch of places. Nobody wanted to hire me. And I'm like, man, forget this. Like, not even McDonald's is going to hire me. And so I found this job knocking doors selling pest control. So I packed up my life and went out and started knocking doors. And that's where things really took off. In about 3.5 months, I had sold 459 one-year contracts. And so in that 3.5 month period, I made just over $96,000 selling pest control door to door.
Wow. And at what age would have that been?
So I was 21. I think I was just about to turn 21.
That's powerful. Was it hard to keep your ego in check when you were just stacking money like that at such a young age? Because, like, there's a lot of adults that may never make that in an entire year.
Yeah, no, I think it was interesting because to say it didn't add a little to my ego would be a lie. Like, for sure, I came back a little more confident with dating and everything else. And I always joke, I never would have landed my wife if it wasn't for years of understanding rejection and knowing how to work through it. But I was in a weird place because I'd lived really poor through my mission and then after my mission, and I was trying not to mooch off my parents. And it took me quite a while to transition into a different lifestyle, which ended up being a huge advantage because I was just banking everything. I think I was spending maybe $10,000 a year between paying for tuition, housing, and food. Now, granted, I was going to a very cheap college, but I was banking everything else, and I saved for a couple of years, and then I really went all into real estate. And it was nice because not only was I saving, but the next year I brought out a team of sales reps. So I made $140,000 my second year, cleared $250,000 by my third year, and then it just really took off from there. So I was making a lot, but I wasn't spending a lot. So even after selling for 4 years, I was at the point where I was probably making, between $250,000 and $500,000. Me and my wife were still renting an apartment and getting our furniture from the DI just because my brain was kind of messed up still. So
yeah, I love it.
It took me a while to transition.
I think it's really powerful when you start, and especially if you start having some success compound, if you can keep your lifestyle in check for those first few years. One, I think frugality is a muscle. And so, like, if you can develop that muscle, it's like riding a bike. It's always there. So I've gone through phases in my life of extreme frugality. I still live a pretty simple life, but I've slowly allowed lifestyle inflation to creep in. But I know that if push comes to shove, if I ever need to cut back to the bare bone, like I can just do that and be equally as happy today as I would be, with my current spending versus my lean fire, my bare minimum spending.
Totally. No, and it's so interesting to watch myself transition. And I think it's good and bad because as I've transitioned and started to spend more, I've spent a lot more on my business, which has in turn made more money. I think you've got to find that happy balance where you're not so frugal that you miss out on opportunity and that you miss out on life. Like, I'm grateful to say that I did spend a fair amount of money on travel when I was younger, and even still. And I've always had, what I needed. I've been willing to eat out and take, employees out to a nice meal or on a vacation. And so you've got to find that balance where you can kind of grow with your income. And I think for me, what made that possible was setting a very strict requirement that my lifestyle would never exceed my passive income from my real estate. I didn't want to touch any of my sales money, like my main income. But once you start creating a passive income, then you're okay with it creeping because you're not eating into that main income. And for me, that's helped a lot. However, now that my passive income's gotten bigger, it would be a lie if I told you that I'm still frugal, because my lifestyle is not anymore at all. But that's one of the advantages of being smart early on.
Absolutely. So what was it that attracted you to real estate? Why did, you're making so much active income? A lot of people would just get caught up and focused on, let's just keep doubling down where I'm already successful. Why was building up that passive income important to you, and what planted that seed?
It's interesting because I think the fear of ever being fearful about money, it didn't take a lot, but that first year being back from my mission, and I did have to go to my parents and say, hey, like, I need money. I can't survive. I didn't have enough in savings after 2 years of serving this mission. And that fear of not knowing where money's going to come from is terrifying. And it was something that I never wanted to do. And being honest, I probably didn't even need to have the fear because my parents were in a good place. They were more than happy to help me, and I would never have people believe anything otherwise. But just the thought of not being able to provide for myself, not being in a place where if I found the right girl and we were ready to start a family that I knew I could afford it, I never wanted to deal with that again. And so I think it really was that fear driving me, saying I will never, ever, ever be in a place where the basic needs that I have for me and my family to have a good life, I can't provide those things. I never want to be in that situation. And so a lot of times that fear has you save a lot more money and invest a lot more money than you even need to. And I think that was one of those things that drove me. And then it transitioned to where investing money and seeing a return every month is freaking fun. Like, once you get to see that cherry at the end, it's huge motivation to continue to do those same actions, because it's just really exciting to see, holy crap, I just made a lot of money and I sat on my butt to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you remember what gave you the idea of real estate investing? Did you have friends or family that was doing it? Was it a book or a blog, or what was the gateway?
So it's funny. I've got this buddy, and in high school, his dad, so I think it was our senior year, his dad built this mansion. I mean, you're talking 15, 20,000 square feet, and it had a big indoor pool. And I lived over there the summer before my mission. I mean, we were always going over there, just hanging out at the pool, watching sports, just being total bums. And so I'd go mow lawns the first part of the day, and then I'd just chill over there. And so his dad at the time probably thought I was a bum. I'd still talk to him a little bit, but we were living the Playboy lifestyle off of his dad's dime, kind of. And so once I left and did a mission, I came back, and I was still friends with this buddy, and we were over at his house. And I had went out with him that first summer selling. And so when we got back, we were talking to his dad, and I was just saying, look, I got all this money. I have no idea what I should do with it. And I still remember he sat me down, and he grabbed a piece of paper, and I had asked him, should I put money in the stock market, or should I buy a property? And he's like, you should definitely do real estate. I'm like, okay, do I have enough to buy a property? I don't know. I could probably spend 60 grand and be okay. And he's like, no. You want to get a loan. You do not want to pay cash for a property. And I was like, explain that to me. I'm not following. And so he wrote 4 little homes and then 1 home. And he showed me, all right, if you have $100,000, this is 1 home. This is the return it's going to give you. Where if you break that up and put $25,000 down on 4 different homes, this is the return it's going to get you. Also, you're going to have appreciation, principal pay down, tax benefits. And so your return is going to be 4 or 5, maybe even 10 times greater than if you buy a property in cash. And so that really registered and resonated with me. Now, I didn't go out and buy a property right away. I started watching Bigger Pockets, reading their books. I started getting into, everything real estate investing I could, and started looking at properties. And then a year later, I did my first investment, which wasn't even a property, but it was a loan on a property, which I brought that back to him. And he's like, what are you thinking? This was a dumb deal. I'm like, oh, okay, I know, I forgot the rules. But so that ended up working out fine. I made a 9.5% return, but then a year later, I went and purchased my first investment property, and then it just kind of soared from there. So I wasn't really all in until about 2 years after, but I had just banked that money in the process, and then I was ready to roll and really build a portfolio.
Awesome. Love it. So while you were building your portfolio, you were also building out like your team of door knockers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Was that a challenge to do both at the same time, as well as like you're doing the family life thing as well, like balancing all 3 of those plates? Was that something that came natural, or?
It's so funny because I wasn't married yet by that point. And I was spending the majority of my time dating and having fun. And like, just being honest, that's what I was doing. Is I was taking 16 credits of college, and then the rest of the time I was dating, hanging out. Building my team came because people were just drawn to the fact that I had been successful, and I talked about it a lot. And so when I'm out going on dates, doing fun things with girls, and we always had some kind of fun event planned. And it's funny how much traction you can get by spending money on other people when it really isn't hardly any money. I mean, I would buy a bag of chips, and me and my roommates would make salsa, and we'd have 20 people in our apartment. And then I'd say, hey, like, come work with us. And they'd be like, oh, doing what? And my buddy would be like, dude, you made $100,000 last year. It's crazy. We're going to go out and sell with them. And so it really wasn't hard to build a team of 15 guys that first year, hardly spending any money, just having a good time and hanging out. And so it wasn't a focus at all. And the more that I just talked about it, naturally people came. And then by the 3rd and 4th year, when I'm making crazy money, I'm like, holy cow, this is like a big deal. This, like, I should have seen that sooner. But if I would have really invested more time early on, who knows where I would be at, because I was very slow to invest a lot of my time into it. And with real estate, it wasn't hard because it wasn't like I was searching deals like crazy. I mean, I would go for, 2 or 3 hours once a month, maybe, to go look at properties. And that's why it took me a good year, 2 years until I actually bought one. So I think a lot of people think it's a lot more than it is. And hopefully I'm not downplaying it, but I look at the time I put in now compared to then, and there's a reason I have now what I have compared to then. Now, don't get me wrong, I grinded way hard in the summers to create that money, but in the off season, I can't say I was working that crazy those first couple of years.
Gotcha. I kind of want to go on a tangent now, because you talking about, buying that bag of chips and salsa and just having people over. That's something I know you still do a lot of today, right? Like, you focus a lot on building an environment and ecosystem for your sales guys, for your employees. And like, correct me if I'm wrong, but you've invested like in your personal residence where you kind of have your own event space, right? For that purpose, like the barn and stuff, right? Am I right there? Yeah. And then like, so you also do like the cruise ships and stuff. So I'd love to just hear your perspective as an entrepreneur on the importance of that corporate culture and the vibe of the environment and all that.
So I think it's interesting because that's what's changed a lot of my lifestyle with real estate. And luckily I've had the real estate to pay for it so I could do it. But I spend a lot of money on my people. I mean, this last year, we took all of our guys to Puerto Rico for a trip. Every year we'll do a big trip for our top leadership. We bought a cruise for every single rep that had signed to come and work for us. We do events almost weekly where we get everybody together and we're smoking meat, or, we have some kind of activity or incentive or something else where we're just constantly bringing value and bringing food and bringing a good time. And so for me, I mean, once a month, I will get a vacation rental for all of my leaders and just bring them in, and we'll play poker and eat food, and we'll just kind of spoil them. And it's funny because you think like, oh, that's crazy. That's a big investment. And it's a decent investment, but for what we get back, it's not. And so we spend a lot of money on our people, and you're right. So the barn and the house that you see, that's actually my parents that we've used.
Okay.
And I'm kind of like, I'm nervous about your judgment, Matt, but because I haven't really shared this publicly, but I'm in the process of building a 12,000 square foot home that has a full-on event center for our people. So it's going to have an indoor pool, a basketball court. We're just really going to ramp up because we're consistently bringing our reps in and showing them a good time. And I figured, hey, if I could do that and have it be part of my house, why not? So that's kind of our next thing that we're working on this next year.
I love that, man. I think that's amazing, and no judgment from me as long as I get an invite.
Hey, anytime, you're more than welcome. We'll have to have you out and you can come check the place out. I'm guessing it's going to be done in about a year from right now. And I haven't posted anything on my own YouTube yet, but I'm going to start doing that once we actually break ground.
That's exciting. So how do you set like the right, culture? How do you set the right tone or the right expectations? And like, I'm really curious because what you've done with your sales guys is similar to what I'm trying to accomplish with my wholesale team. So again, like you've got like a lot of young individuals doing door knocking. They're making more money than they've probably ever done before. A lot of them don't have a lot of life experience. So it can be really easy to let the ego hijack you once you get some successes, or it can be really easy to, start having that defeatist attitude if you don't get a win on day one, but your buddy does that's on the team. So, are there certain resources that you've relied on to learn how to set that culture and tone? Is it just been by happenstance? Like, if you're willing to dive into it, I'd love to learn more personally from a selfish reason, but I think also a lot of the entrepreneurs listening would love to get kind of a peek into that.
Yeah, totally. Well, what I would say, and this isn't to at all say that what you're doing is wrong. You're killing it. You're doing all the right things. You've built an incredible culture. However, one thing that I'm guessing you're starting to see that I know I struggled with probably my third or fourth year is you get to a point where you've brought people in, you've trained them, you've shown them how to do everything that you do. And then they transition in their mind and they're like, well, Chandler, you're still making a lot of money. And I now feel like I can do everything that you can do. So why am I not making that money? Why do you still have any say in making money on my situation? And their argument is valid. Like, it's true. I mean, granted, I brought that training, that experience. I helped them to get where they're at, but it doesn't matter who you are. I mean, I'm the same way. I work for a company. And once I get to the point where I'm like, hey, dude, I just brought in, close to 200 reps. We put up $10 million of revenue in 3.5 months. What do I need you for? And I've seen that with the business that I'm involved with our CEO, and also with my people. And I think the biggest thing that matters the very most is you've always got to find a way to bring value. My football coach always used to say, what have you done for me lately? I don't care if you were the best running back ever last week. If you suck this week, you're going to hit the bench. Like, that's how this system works. And so if you're not finding a way to consistently bring value to your people, then that's going to dry up. And so for me, that's a big reason that I pushed into real estate. And that's a big reason that I've pushed into YouTube.
Cashflow Tribe.
I'm just starting out. I own one rental property now. People that are here for the first time, you're just growing exponentially, even in a half a day. I haven't had one sale pushed down my throat at all. It's just been all, people giving. They're here to help. You can see it's their passion to help, and they really mean they want to help a tribe of people to change their lives forever.
I just haven't had the experience and haven't really had the people around me to really help me through. And frankly, like, it was scary to come, but I was like, if this works out, and honestly, I've gained a lot of insight through camp so far, and gears are turning in my head. I really do think that I'm gonna have some breakthroughs.
So I've had one property for a few years, very turnkey, and then now just getting into a lot of different strategies through Cashflow and being in the same room with people who want to do what I want to do or have already done what I want to do. So it's kind of like I'm seeing the vehicle that people are driving that is the vehicle I actually want to own. And being one day?
A lot of people have fear. No, I may not have limiting beliefs fear, but fear of speaking to people, fear of asking. Sometimes your help is right there.
Biggest thing that matters the very most is you've always got to find a way to bring value. My football coach always used to say, what have you done for me lately? I don't care if you were the best running back ever last week. If you suck this week, you're going to hit the bench. Like, that's how this system works. And so if you're not finding a way to consistently bring value to your people, then that's going to dry up. And so for me, that's a big reason that I pushed into real estate. And that's a big reason that I've pushed into YouTube, because for my big leaders, I'm able to give them the best training ever, the best leadership training, the best sales training. But I'm also now the only person in my niche that I know of that is able to, for free, give mentorship to my people. So now I can show them how to go out. I can show them how to make $100,000 in sales, but now I can show them how to take that $100,000 and put it into real estate investing. And I can show them the path where it's like, look, if you stay with me, you will be me 5 years from now. Same income, same everything. You'll have the same passive income, the same active income. You'll be where I'm at. But if you go somewhere else or try to do your own thing, you're not going to be. And the thing is when 5 years from now gets here and I've got a lot of my reps there, I've got to find more ways to bring value. Because if I don't find more ways to bring value, why wouldn't they go and do it? And a lot of times that seems unfair for me, but it's not unfair. Once they acquire that skill set, once they've gotten to the level where they've got 100 units of rental real estate and they've got 200 guys working for them out selling pest control, I've got to find that next level to help them level up, or they deserve to go somewhere else.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great perspective. And it is something like, I've got a question that I want answered, but first I want to make a statement. So yeah, I think that that's really valuable if you're focused on really investing in your people and building a long-term relationship. That for me is something I really do pride myself in. So what I've tried to always make the guys aware of once they hit a certain level of success is like, hey man, like you're crushing it. I love it. Just so you know, I'm constantly personally leveling up. So I'm always trying to get one step further. I want to get out of where I am today and have you step into that role. So for example, like literally like to me, it's almost like a stepped system where I'm like, I'm here. Adam Martin was the first one to join my team. So like Adam's kind of like the mini Matt. And then like Mike, I want you to be the mini Adam. And I literally, guys, like until you're ready, I can't take the next step to where I want to be because I need someone to fill the shoes of who I am today. And so I'm constantly trying to show that there's like a clear path where, like you're saying, like, hey, if you want to be me in 5 years, I want that for you so that I can go on and be the next version of me that I want to be. And you guys can keep following in my footsteps until it doesn't make sense anymore. I really love that. But I guess taking a step, so like, are you finding that a lot of your guys are retaining that long? Like of the original 15 that you had signed up the first year, like, are there people still with you now that were there day one?
Definitely. Yeah, there are a lot. Not my first year, but my second year, I still have, and it's very few. My third year, I've got more, and it kind of trickles out. But being honest with you, I have lost some incredible leaders and some incredible sales reps learning how to consistently grow and bring value. And I think that's something that's really hard and that honestly knocked me on my butt a couple times where I'm like, man, you're awesome. I had a good relationship with you. I did everything I could. But obviously, I didn't bring enough to the table to where you felt like staying with me was better than going out on your own or doing something different. And that hurts. And you've got to either learn from those things or just give up and be like, forget it. Like, it is what it is. That's on them. And if you go down that second road, I think you end up in trouble. And I think that's why a lot of businesses end up failing is they say, look, I busted my butt for years. I deserve to be able to just let off the gas. And you never deserve that. That's not how life, you know, I've lost a lot of really good people and that sucked. But I had to choose whether I was going to let that knock me down and be like, oh, I'm just going to keep doing things the way I'm going to do things, or I'm going to transition and find a way to bring more value. I'm going to try and figure out why this individual didn't think it was a good idea to keep working with me and what I can do to fix it so that they can continue to work with me in the future when I find another person just like them. And that's a big reason that I really dove into real estate investing and helping my people do it. I mean, my people in the last what, 4 or 5 months, have purchased over 30 units of rental real estate. That's not my real estate. That's them. That's my people that I've been able to help do that. On top of that, starting this YouTube channel has helped me to find quality people, because that's the hard thing with our job is I'll create awesome leaders, but then finding good reps to come and work for these awesome leaders used to be a struggle, where that's not a struggle anymore because I can give them from my YouTube channel. You know, I've literally had 1,000 people apply. I divide them up between my best leaders and they can weed them out and find the people that they know are going to come and be good sales reps. And that's just another way I've been able to add huge value to where they're not going to find those two things anywhere else. Now, they might eventually be able to because other people might start doing that. But then I've just got to find what that next level is to keep my people engaged and staying here.
Yeah, love it. So I'd love to chat a little bit about some tactical advice that you'd have for entrepreneurs or leaders trying to build a similar corporate culture. So has there been anything you've done where you're like, wow, that had a massive impact, or like where the moment you did, you're like, I need to do more of this? And I'm happy to kind of lead by example and give you a second to kind of think about it. But for myself, recently, we've started voluntary 7 a.m. workouts. And so we all jump on a Zoom call together, and each one of my department managers leads a different day. And the amount of like bonding and culture that's occurring in that like 40-minute workout session at 7 a.m., I think is going to create a completely different culture than anything we had up until that point, and is building like deeper, more meaningful relationships. We also have actually, I just happen to have it. We've got like these WWE belts we assign every week. It's way cooler when it's in person and you get to put it on, but like right now we're virtually assigning it via Zoom calls. But I'd love to hear like, what are some interesting ways you've hacked your culture?
Yeah, I think the first thing is your people will do what you do. And so you've got to make sure that you're doing things rather than telling them to do things. Yeah. And so for me, we've been very good at weekly Zoom calls where we get all of our leaders on and we talk to them. Weekly company calls to where I meet with all of my sales reps and I'm constantly bringing value, bringing information. We work hard to do a once a month getaway for all of my leaders that I talked about early. And I just spoil the crap out of them. We play poker. We have tons of food. We've got tons of sweets. We've got just a great time once a month. And then we also have quality training that we've had a lot of time put into to make sure that we're helping them to level up on a consistent basis. And then we're constantly bringing value with incentives. We incentivize our people in a big way. We're always doing an incentive for free AirPods or to get them free new iPad or free new Segway or whatever it is. We're just constantly pushing that. We also work hard to always have good swag for our people. So we're consistently keeping them in our clothing and producing new quality clothing so that they're repping it, they're talking about it, they're taking ownership over it. With individual reps, we are always doing almost weekly activities in the off season. So we always have some kind of event going where we've either rented out. There's this place where, you know, the wave pools where you go and surf on.
Yeah, I've seen on your social, man.
Yeah, so we'll rent out the whole building and say, everybody come here, or we'll rent out the whole jump park where we can bring everybody, and we've got the whole area with all the trampolines, and we've always got food and activities, and we've just always got something going so that they feel like this is almost a fraternity a little bit. And I've never been part of a fraternity. I'm probably not even pronouncing it right, but you get the idea, like, you want that sense of loyalty so that when people do run into bumps or they're like, maybe this isn't a good fit, maybe want to look a different direction, they at least have a loyalty to come and talk to you so you can resolve those concerns and you can fix them. Because I'm not going to say, even with doing all of this stuff, you're still going to have issues, but there's at least that relationship there where you can work through those issues and combat them. And what's hard is a lot of businesses are transitioning. All of the things I just mentioned, it's not even like those are above and beyond. You know what I mean? Like, that's what you have to do at the bare minimum. And then for me, I've tried to add other value where I'll do one-on-one mentorship calls for free with my employees. I'll help them to get into real estate investing. I'll help them build their personal brand. Whatever I can do to add value on top of that and help them be financially smart with their money once they've made it and done well with us, while also helping them to level up from sales to recruiting to leadership to real estate. Just all of those things, we're constantly looking into new ways to say, hey, this is going to bring you value, or this is going to give you an experience or an opportunity. That's the other thing is trips for us. we use as incentives like crazy. Like there was one year I had a kid that came out and worked for us. He had 5 different trips he had won from the summer. So a big portion of his off season was spent traveling all over the world because of things that he had won while working for us. And so you've just got to always find something that's going to help your people level up. And it's hard because so many of these things for us, you're not seeing the result of them. Like I'll tell you right now, I'm close to $100,000 of money out, and the coronavirus hits where I'm like, man, I haven't seen a dime come back. And I'm really hoping that it does and that we can get our people out to work. But that's the kind of sacrifice you have to make if you really want to build what you want to build, what you're talking about.
Yeah, there's some great advice there. So when you're looking at building the team, you know, especially looking for like salespeople, what sort, like any processes or tips or unique approach that you use in regards to hiring? Or are you looking for like a certain spark or a certain trait in a person that, you know, to join your team? What does that look like?
Yeah, so every guy that comes in my door says, well, Chandler, I know people make good money, but I also know people fail at this job. What makes a rep unique? What are you looking for, and how do I know if I'm going to be that so I can be successful? And the answer always disappoints them, because our guys that do well, they literally, it comes down to just a couple things. First off, it's work ethic. Somebody that just shows up and is willing to put in the time every single day. Second off, it's just being able to handle rejection. So we have so much rejection, so much negativity. And what's cool about this is when you have a good sales rep, they're a good entrepreneur just naturally, because they're so good at handling failure and rejection and hard things. And so that's the next big thing. So you've got work ethic, handle rejection. The last thing is being able to do the first 2 things and keep a positive attitude and a smile through all of it. If you have those 3 things, then you will slay it in this. You'll slay it starting a business. You'll slay it with literally anything you do, because it's hard to stay positive and keep those first 2 in check when you meet rejection. It's really hard to keep rolling and have that positive mindset. But on the alternative side of things, if you're not positive and happy, you could be working hard. You could be pushing through rejection, but immediately people are going to sense you're in a Debbie Downer mood, and you're not going to see any success, even if you have the other 2 things. So you've got to have this perfect combination of everything. And if you find a guy with that, he's going to slay it, and he'll slay it in anything he does.
Yeah, that's great. So any suggestions for us on how to sort through that? And one point I want to bring up here, and I suspect that you're maybe going to be getting to this level soon as well, if you're not already experiencing it. A lot of the people that now apply to work for me or with me, they know what answers are the right answers to say. And like sometimes I can tell when I'm talking to a robot that essentially is just parroting to me the talking points that they think that they need to say in order to seem like a good culture fit. Is there any like tricks of the trade you use in order to determine, like, is this person hardworking, or are they just like saying they're hardworking?
So I think I've become very good at hiring and firing. I think you're always going to have bad apples slide through. And if you get to the point where you're not having any bad apples slide through, I personally think you're doing something wrong, just because that's part of the process. You're not going to be able to determine someone's work ethic from an interview or even 3 interviews. However, there are a couple things I've done not to help me make the decision, but to help them make the decision. And what I mean by that is when I have someone come in my door, I'm going to straight up ask them, and I'm going to say, look, where do you fall? Because you need to know the bottom 5% of people that come out to work with us, they don't make money. They go home miserable with nothing but negative things to say about the job. And so if you're consistently a bottom 10 or even a bottom 15% person, I don't want you to come work with me, and you don't want to come work with me, because you're going to have a terrible experience. However, if you've consistently been in the top at these things, you need to know the top 20% of my people are making over $50,000 in a 3.5 month period. Like, that's my stats, but only you know where you fall in this. And if you've historically been at the bottom, I'm all about you changing your life, but I don't think this is where you should start, because this is a really hard job and it's probably not going to be a good fit for you. And so I think that's one line that I use that is a true line that I'll have people that they're like, hey, great interview, I'll let you know. And I'm like, all right, we'll never see you again. And that's okay, because we don't want that. So I think that's the first thing. The second thing is, I'm in a job where everything we do until the summer starts, they're not making money doing it. right? So once I sign them, even if they say they are that top 10% kind of guy, I'm going to give them all kinds of stuff to do for free. And when you have someone do something for free, it's very easy to tell what their work ethic, what their drive, you know, how they handle hard things is, because they're not seeing immediate results, but they're still having to do hard things. And I've got certain benchmarks. I say, look, you've got to do X, Y, and Z before you can start the summer for me, and you need to do it on this time frame. And if they don't do it, I'm going to say, look, your head's not in the right place. You told me you were a top 10% guy. A top 10% guy doesn't do this. So that's another way we've been able to weed people out. But even with that, we have people slip in, and then we have very strict requirements where if they're not reaching what they need to do when it comes to production, we're going to fire them. And a lot of people think that's harsh, but that's how it works. There is no one, and I can promise you this, Matt, there is no one that, regardless of how weird or crazy or awkward or uncomfortable they are, that if they have these three things, I can't turn them into an incredible salesman. I've had the weirdest fetchers come and thrive working for me because they have those three things. I can turn them into a people person. I really can. But I can't turn them into a positive person. And that's something that is really hard to overcome if that's who they've always been.
Love it. Yeah, that's some great advice. That first line you laid out there, I'm going to rewatch and use that all the time. The same way that, like, once you broke down for me your approach to door knocking and like just like how you saddle up and like we're looking out at the street together and stuff like that. Literally the moment, like there's certain times that you just drop wisdom and I'm like, I literally need to memorize this right away and implement it yesterday. I really love that, really forcing the sorting mechanism back on them. And again, if we're really looking for those truly motivated individuals, those are kind of the aspects we want to focus on. All right, I'm going to pause the interview here now. We kind of went longer than I expected, but I think there's tons of value here. So we're definitely going to shoot a lot more videos with Chandler in the future, guys. But before we wrap up, Chandler, if people want to follow along with you on your journey, what's the best way to do so?
So it's Chandler David Smith on everything. My YouTube channel is just starting to pick up. That's probably my favorite platform. So check me out there. It's just Chandler David Smith on YouTube, but it's also Chandler David Smith on Instagram, on Facebook, and I have a website that's Chandler David Smith. If you want to learn more about what I do with door-to-door sales, especially if you're in the States, we're always looking for good people. And if you're watching saying, man, I'm in the top 10%, go check out my website. You can also go to www.elitesummersales.com to apply if you're interested in hopping on for a job with us this summer.
Awesome. Thanks again, Chandler.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks again to Chandler for taking the time to shoot this video with me. If you guys enjoyed this video with Chandler, make sure you hit the subscribe button if you're new here, because we've got a whole series of videos coming out in the near future with Chandler. As well, if you guys enjoyed Chandler's backstory, make sure you go give him a subscribe on his YouTube channel. We'll throw a link in the video description down below so you can find your way there. But otherwise, just if you guys enjoyed this video, smash the like button, hit the subscribe button if you're new to my channel. I'll see you guys in the next video.